Hi, welcome to Lightbob TV, episode 1 on Wednesday. Today we're going to talk about manufacturing and and basically what manufacturers don't tell designers, lighting designers, um, and we're going to probably be around 30-40 minutes. I'm still gauging and roading this live stream thing. Yesterday was perfect example of live TV, and the beauty of it is that I had everything set up. First, I forgot to select a channel. Second, my internet was intermittent, and third, I didn't know what to do. So while I'm working on a plan B, at least now I know that I got to start my channels. Second, I also learned how to give a title to the show, which I didn't know before. So all these cool things are going to be happening, and I would just want to thank you for being with me and Bear. I found the yesterday episode because somehow it recorded. I haven't listened to it yet, so I'm going to listen to it. If it's worth anything, I'll put it back on the channel. If not, well, that's life. Um, so welcome. This is the first episode about manufacturing, and one of the reason, what I started doing this is because there's so much I wanted to talk about, and also I had the lighting industry has been very generous to me over 4 decades, and one big part of it was the lighting manufacturer. I had the chance to work with manufacturers all over the planet, big, small, corporate, public companies, uh, all size. And all I can say is that they are a hidden gem, and too often they are not they're not put at the value that they really are. And we'll go through that today, and also through the different series, because as I'm developing this project, I'm seeing that there's a lot to be said, and has also I was when I designed this show, I said, well, first I want to talk about source, because that's what I have been taught, then the fixtures, and then the manufacturers, which put everything together. Thursday is dedicated to design, which is the profession, and Friday is the market. The market, because we live in a world today that we cannot neglect it, the market. And if we don't understand, then it's very hard for a designer or a team member to have the right interaction and do what's right and wrong. So one of the thing about manufacturing is that it's something that most designer interact every day, but they don't truly understand what's going on, or what to do. And this is the reality that I live in. For years, I heard that manufacturers were uh, the enemy of design. But when you think about it, and what I realize is that most manufacturers uh, have a quiet pressure, uh, and this pressure is what is shaping our lighting decision. Uh, they have cost pressure, they have production reality, they have market demand, shareholder, investors. I mean, there's a lot about manufacturing that is not said, and it's also not on our line. It's not our problem. We get a catalog, a shiny catalog, and this is the tool we have to work with. Then we need something to do a price. We call in on the hotline. We get somebody at the other end, and they help us, or they don't, or we get the run around. Um, and 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 that's basically what we know about manufacture. We go to trade show, we meet people we'll probably never meet again. We have our local rep there, then we have some corporate people that we get introduced to, and that's about it. If you place a good order, you'll be invited to a party, and that's about what designer do. And when I say place a good order, it could be a specification. If you have something that's significant, uh, it is always something that you are become known for. And what I realize is that over the year, um, as you change in your you know in your lighting strategy, uh, the procurement team also changed. People, the agency, the distributor. If you do international project, then you have different sales rep because some do locals, some do international sales, some do specific countries. Um, so it's a very interesting, I would say interesting way to navigate and also try to understand how um, our interaction is and where we start and where it stops. Um, one of the problem the structural problem that I see in our industry as a lighting designer is that we look at catalogs, we look at photometrics, we look at price, and the scope of um, that's about the scope of information that we're looking at. And 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 for most designers, that's enough. um, when you start asking question a bit more substantial, um, how was this fixture engineer? Was this an optical design or a cost design? This particular question is very, very. This is where the game happens, and this is where you separate the pro from the amateur. And I'm not going to say amateur, but I'm going to say uh, the pro from the non-pro, because you can have a company that manufacture hundreds of thousands of non-engineer fixtures, and they do very well. They have their sales in place. They have their production in line. Everything is a well-oiled machine. And then you have some company that are have tremendous talent in optical design that you know are not that well organized. So the cost of the fixtures also reflect this fundamental difference. And us as designer, what does it do to us? Well, that's where you have design and you have just general lighting. That's what's happening. So when when we start thinking about optical engineering, when we start thinking about having some control or certain control over the amount of light that is coming out of a light source, you'll see that some manufacturers are really, really good at controlling the beam. They have a very they nail down their beam control. Most likely, the same manufacturer will also have put an effort into the optical lens, and they are very particular and concerned about the lighting distribution. What is it going to look like? How is it going to go? And therefore, the visual comfort will emanate from this fixtures or this type of lighting fixtures. So again, we have beam control, we have optical distribution, the light distribution, and all of that are basic elements that give us a visual comfort. Now, optical design, I remember optical design has evolved to a point where at a certain point, I remember General Electric had about I think 30,000 different light source, and when you start thinking about the math, and then you start thinking about the repercussion of having 30,000 different light bulbs, then you start thinking about optic lens and all that quality. You understand that the optical design was very elaborate, and a lot of people put thoughts and efforts and motion to control, and also to have these basic element of, beam control, optical design, and light distribution. The department were massive, and all this to give us a certain visual comfort. Nowadays, with LED, it is a bit different. It is a bit different because we don't have the same challenge that we had with this all these different sources, and now they are at a different level. And what happened is that 20 years ago, when LED started to come into the architectural lighting, what happened is that people thought it would just be a swap, just take an LED source, stick it in the fixture, and call it a day. They would customize maybe the board, the mounting board. They would customize a little bit the heat sink, sorry. And that was about the extent of what we had for source. And of course, as a end user and as a designer and a end user, the result were catastrophic. First, and I'm not even talking about the color shift and all of that, just the optical. And so, as far as manufacturers were concerned, it became there. But also the fact that when you had an incandescent bulb, you put it in a socket, you had an immediate outflow of light. Now, this LED needed to have a special component called a driver, and the driver had to be compatible with the LED, because if you take another driver, then it may have, create some problem on the line, life expectancy, flickering, early failures, unstable dimming, etc., etc., etc. So that was the first time that manufacturer had to start thinking, well, we gotta start putting some electronic engineers. We gotta start putting a bit more thought into setting up our lighting division, because now it's not only a question of putting a bulb, having a good reflector and a lens. We have to make sure that before that, all that comes before the output of light is working. So that means that we need a good driver that will, know, also give us stability so that they don't flicker, have they don't create color shift, they don't over. We have a way smoother control when we dim them. So just on the driver side, that was an additional, department that there, and then who said talk about additional department talks about additional cost, additional tooling, additional testing, and additional everything. So of course, and as an end user, we didn't, and also even the manufacturer didn't understand, didn't under the pricing point, how to price thing. Yeah, and then we're left fixture that were previously, we compare a cylinder for an incandescent company to another. They knew the pricing range. Maybe they changed a bit the metal or the construction, the physical construction of the fixtures, and more. So the understanding and never mind about the pricing. So as a designer, what does it have anything to do with us? Well, we didn't know about this. I don't think many of us had the attention span to learn about it, but the pressure of the manufacturer to come up with product, because the orders were there and construction keep going, and also legislation start to fade out some of the incandescent and fluorescent and having also this technology, this new technology LED that was not ready, put the manufacturer under tremendous amount of pressure, and a lot of them, they didn't have a way out. I mean, when you've been manufacturing for 100 years and you have a reputation and you have all your tooling and everything is done, and you're producing these products, these reliable product, and then you come with this new source that have additional parts that doesn't treat the light the same way that you were, it starts to shift things around unstabilize the people and also the production. So as a manufacturer, it's very hard to become competitive, because now what, before we used to think we would do a recess scan, a 6-inch recess scan, and we would use a par 38. It's easy because everybody speaks the same song, and not easy, but easier. And maybe you have a couple different trims that are premium, but most of the strategy has been laid out, and the products are working, and You know, the margins are there, the budget, it's easy to budget, the timing, production, everything is super simple. Um, Now you come in with these solid state beast, and I say solid state beast because it became very hard to how could I say that? It became very hard to understand the different players, because now you got to buy some electronic component. Now this is part of a certain chain, so you got to get some new distributor. You got to open some new account. You got to get some new pricing. You got to pre-estimate how many fixture you're gonna build. And then also, like, and people that have phone since the iPhone understands that every 6 months you have an upgrade on your phone, and after a couple of years you got a new operating system, and that your iPhone 12 doesn't work now because you need an iPhone 14 because the so this happens also in the lighting world. Companies that were making LEDs stopped making that model of LED because now they have a more powerful. But more powerful means more heat. More heat means a bigger heat sink. Bigger heat sinks means, more dissipation. So now that little fixture that we design needs to increase. But so the ripple effect of having all these changes, and I would call it unstable, because it was very hard to decide which way to go. And when I say that from my eyes of a lighting designer, but also fixture designer, because in that game, I consult, keep up with the technology, keep up with the driver, keep up with the dimmer, the compatibility, keep up with the LED. Because if you go to a trade show, you have a 3 watt, you have a 5 watt. Now you have it was just a very, very hard time to keep up with the technology. I'm not saying that today is easier, but a little bit. And now we can have we have different parameter and different that came and stabilized the vocabulary, stabilized the technology, stabilized the mounting. The, the industry stable. Not to say that evolving, it's still evolving at lightning speed, and I think it's going to evolve at a sphere with AI. But at least we have some standard and understanding and agreement that we can follow. So all this value engineering has been added. How does all this now into good lighting? How does all this technology makes it? It doesn't. Um, and like I was out yesterday, and sorry if the not broadcast, but I was saying the effect that that fixture have on our design is backwards. First, if we go with where our, then it's easy to pick up the fixtures, and if we have the right fixtures, then our design intent will transfer from there. If not, then it's the opposite. If we have our leading our design, then we are stuck with. And the second thing is that the evolution of the fixtures will put us into a certain liability design wise. So hope this makes sense. But for me, it had been a challenge from both ends, from a designer viewpoint and from a product designer and working with manufacturer. So when I think to project, hospitality, residential, large development, um, I would think um, the first thing is what's the concept, what's the idea, and especially if I work with a chain or if I work with uh, a big firm, because I did some operation, I did some work with big firm, and I asked them, okay, so what's leadership, and then of course you're hired as a outsource or contractual lighting designer. So nobody's going to take time to explain to you what leadership is about, what are the philosophy of the company. You're going to be thrown into production right away, and it's very hard to have a certain integrity or to have a path when you don't know what you're doing, when you're flying blind. So that's when I decided I could help, and I wanted to help because the other question I asked myself was that, you know, am I done with lighting? Is this because I was looking where it was going, and I said, is this the end for me? Is this where I call it quit? And the answer is no. Like I still have a lot to give, but at a different role. And this is where I find out that helping leadership is my position. The everyday grinding and doing plans and calculation is not my gig anymore. But I know that if we don't have a strong leadership and we protect the design integrity of the firm, it's very hard for the newcomers and junior designer, although some of them are senior, to follow a path and keep evolving with it, and not be distracted by the noise. Speaking of fixtures, manufacturers, and sources, although they are tools, once you understand what their position is in this ecosystem, now it becomes very very easy to play around and to create and be consistent. So having procurement driving lighting decision is usually where the lighting strategy steps in, and this is where it usually miss. You have you have deadlines, we have production goals, we have certain amount of people allocated, we have budgets, so all of that makes us it's very hard uh, to keep the wind, not the wind, but the ship in one direction, because we have all these different uh, distraction that are taking us away from our main goal. Sometimes I say to my client, I said, write your own lighting narrative. How do you see lighting in this space? And it's very very interesting. Again, that's why I wrote my little book, because I mean, they talk about fixtures, they talk about manufacturers, they talk about LED. They don't even know what it is. And then none of those things can describe to me what feeling they want in the space, what kind of lighting effect they would love, or why would they want that, and or even they know what's going in to happen in the space. They have they don't have the vocabulary to express it. So again, if the client cannot express himself and the designer, reads from catalog and then says, well, this is the kind of wattage we need. We need a 32 watt, we need 525 degree, and we need a black fixtures that looks like a cylinders. How can we talk about the quality of light? Um, it's very, very, very difficult. Sometimes what a project needs, it's not more fixtures. It's just a little bit more clarity, just a little bit more dialogue. Yeah. Yeah. So as we close, um, so don't disconnect lighting from intention. They go together, and enhance yourself in knowing how to express um, your needs in lighting. Why? Because once you start expressing the feelings, when you start expressing the dialogue of the type of lighting you want in your space, it becomes very, very easy for the hardware to follow. It becomes very, very easy for manufacturers to help you in the selection of the product. It becomes very easy to customize a product because you know that maybe it's not available in the market, and since you are writing the narrative, since you are deciding what you want, it becomes very easy to describe and control. So you're not effect of what's happening in the industry. You're not effect of an overstock of a manufacturer and they want to sell whatever they have inventory because they design a new model and they want to get rid of these products. You're really in control, and you don't need to add fixtures. You don't need to listen to the salespeople because you have the right idea. You have an idea of the perception you want people to have in your space, and this is the most important thing, I would say. So tomorrow, um, we're gonna dive into lighting design, um, and this is why lighting is really emotional architecture, and together they bring you to you know victory or failure, and I'll leave you on that. So thank you for being there, and see you tomorrow.